of Orthodox spirituality.
Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou, Lekea.
Hello, dear listeners. We are continuing to read from the book With Pain and Love for Contemporary Man, the first volume in the series Spiritual Counsels by Saint Paisios. Chapter 4, Impudence and Disrespect. Outspokenness banishes reverence and respect. Yeroda, where does outspokenness, parisia, come from? From Paris. From Paris, upon and parisia. Outspokenness refers to undue boldness of speech, speaking one's mind without restraint or reserve, with undue familiarity. It can border on sauciness, insolence, and impudence. The Holy Fathers say, be restrained, reserved in every word, in every thought. Classically, parisia was usually used in the positive sense of speaking the truth candidly, out of a sense of duty, even though the other person might bring harm to the speaker. Outspokenness betrays impudence. Such lack of restraint in speech drives away the fear of God in us, much like smoke drives bees away from the beehive. Yeroda, how can I avoid being outspoken? You should feel that you are beneath everybody else. This requires a great deal of humility. Being the youngest here, you must respect and revere all the sisters. State your thoughts with humility, and avoid acting as if you know everything. God will bless you then with His high grace, and you will make good progress. Being outspoken is the novice's worst enemy, because it drives away piety. Usually outspokenness results in rebellion, and is followed at first by insensitivity and indifference to small sins, which we gradually get used to, believing them to be natural. However, in the depths of our soul, there is no rest, only anxiety. It will be difficult for such people to diagnose their condition, because the heart is smeared with grime and cannot feel the wrong turns it is making. Yeroda, what is the relationship between simplicity and outspokenness? Simplicity is one thing, and outspokenness is another. Simplicity has piety and a childlike quality, whereas outspokenness is marked by audacity. Many times, even when we are being straightforward, we may be impudent. If we are not attentive to others, within our candor and within our simplicity, impudence may be hidden. One says, for instance, I am a simple person, or I am a candid and forthright person, but he is actually impudent without realizing it. Simplicity is one thing, and impudence is another. Yeroda, what is it to be spiritually reserved? It is to have the fear of God in the good sense of the word. This fear and the sense of awe that accompanies it bring gladness and sweetness to the heart, and it begins dripping with honey of the spiritual kind. Think of a little child who is reserved, and out of respect for his father will not even look him in the eyes. When he goes close to him to ask him for something, he blushes. That's the kind of child one wants to place on the iconostasis. And then you have the child that thinks, he is only my father after all, and with that in mind he behaves carelessly before him with audacity, and when he wants something he demands it with tantrums and threats. In a good family, the children usually act with a sense of freedom. They respect and revere their parents without being overly timid or afraid to speak up. Discipline in the family should not be rigid as it is in the military. The children should enjoy their parents, and the parents should enjoy their children. Abba Isaac says, love does not show shame. Love is full of courage or boldness in the good sense of the word. Such love contains reverence and respect, and so it wins over fear. One person is reserved, hesitates, and yet fears because he is not truly reserved. Others are truly reserved but are not fearful because they are truly spiritually reserved. When our reserve is spiritual, we feel great joy. When, for example, a small child loves his mother and father with this kind of trust-filled boldness, he is not afraid of being smacked by them. He takes his father's hat, even if it's an officer's hat, and throws it in the air and has such a good time. He has good simplicity, which does not involve impudence. It is important that we be able to discern the difference between the two. Where there is no respect, no reserve, we end up with boldness, impudence, and audacity. Then we will hear, for example, of the girl who remains lying in bed telling her mother, "Mother, bring me a glass of water. Make it very cold. Oh, this is not cold. Didn't I say cold?" When they speak like this at that age, they will surely ask later, why should a woman fear her husband? What they don't understand is that this kind of fear is filled with respect, and this respect in turn is filled with love. When I respect something, I also love it, and when I love something, I also have respect for it. A woman should respect her husband in this sense. The man in turn should love his wife, but these days they put every single thing on the same level. Afterwards, families fall apart because their understanding of the gospel is wrong. "It's the wife that must obey," says the husband. What does he not understand is that without love, you cannot make even a kitten obey you. If you do not have love, the other person shall sense it, and she will not feel respect. You will not be able to ask her for anything, even for a glass of water. When we have respect for the other person, we also have respect for ourselves, but not of the calculating, self-serving kind. Rather, the respect we have for others should be full of philotimo. People who care only for themselves do not have philotimo. Respect for one's elders. Sometimes, Yeroda, I speak badly to my elders. I realize it and go to confession. Since you realize it and confess it, you will gradually feel disgust for yourself, the good kind of disgust. You will be humbled, and then the grace of God will come, and your bad habit will go away. Yeroda, sometimes I joke around and tease sisters lovingly, but I am afraid that I might be too outspoken. You are too young to be teasing others. Usually in a family, the older members tease and joke with the younger ones and not the opposite. This way both young and old can enjoy the exchange. It's not right for a child to tease his grandmother or grandfather. Can you imagine a little child going up to his dad and all of a sudden tickling him under the chin? It's different when an adult is playfully teasing a child, and the child enjoys it and responds right away with delight. When this happens, both become playful and have a good time. Yeroda, when I offer my opinion to an older person about something which I think is not correct, and that person has an opposite opinion, an opposing view, should I then agree with him? No, you should not agree with something that is wrong. You must say what is right, but in a good manner. For example, you may say, maybe we should do it in this way. What do you think? It's just a thought. Or you can say, I have this thought. This is how you become a magnet and attract the grace of God. There are some people who are too outspoken, not intentionally but out of habit. In any case, no matter what, one must show respect to one's elders. Respect is something that older people want. Even if they have flaws, they still have their good features, and they have experience in life. When asked for your opinion, you should express it with humility and respect, without inwardly believing that things are exactly as you say, because the other person may know something that you do not, or think of something that did not cross your mind. When a young person is, for example, listening to a conversation on a particular subject, and thinks that his view on it is more correct, he should take into account the age of his company. If the person he is talking with is of the same age, then he should say something like, "This thought crossed my mind," If that person, however, is older, he should think, I've just had this blasphemous thought. And even if the thought is correct, it would be impertinent of him to state it if he does not have the authority. When you say older, do you mean an older person in years or in spiritual maturity? I mean primarily a person older in age. Besides, even someone who has reached an advanced spiritual state respects his elders. Is it right, Yeroda, to have greater respect for someone who is younger in age, but more spiritually advanced, than someone who is older but less advanced? No, that is not the right approach. No matter what an older person is, you must respect him for his age. You must respect an older person for his age and a younger person for his devotion to God. Where there is true respect, the younger person respects the older, and the older person respects the younger. Within this respect there is love. The Apostle Paul says, give all of them their due, taxes to whom taxes are due, respect to whom respect is due, honor to whom honor is due. Romans 13, verse 7. Yeroda, is it wrong for a young person to reprimand an older person? This is a convention of the new generation. But Holy Scripture says, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault. Matthew 18, verse 15. It does not say, go and tell your father his fault. But these days young people always seem to have an opinion, to carry the spirit of resistance to everything without realizing it. They consider this behavior natural. They speak with impudence and yet say, I put it plainly. They are influenced by the rascal and miscreant spirit of this world that respects nothing and nobody. The young have no respect for their elders. Worse yet, they don't even realize how bad this is. But what can you expect when you hear a young person say that respect for older people is old-fashioned, and when in his mind this kind of statement proves that he has a strong and independent personality? We must be very vigilant so as to avoid such a spirit. Today's modern secular spirit clearly says, do not listen to your parents or your teachers. This is why even young children turn out much worse now than they ever did in the past. The children who are most damaged are those whose parents showered them with admiration and praise for speaking with impudence. Parents do not realize how much harm they are causing by condoning this kind of behavior. One time, 2 young cousins, around 8 and 9 years old, came to my kalivi with their fathers. I had one of them sit on my right and the other on my left. On that day, it happened that an artist friend of mine, a very nice young man, was also there. He could sketch your portrait in no time. Dionisi, I said, why don't you make a sketch of these children as they sit here with me? Let me give it a try, he said, but it may be hard because they don't sit still. He took out a sheet of paper and started drawing. Then suddenly one of the boys jumped up and in the presence of everybody said, let's see what you can come up with, dummy. Imagine with all these people there. The young artist was not disturbed at all. That's today's children for you, father, he said. I, on the other hand, was really furious. What the boy said made my blood boil, and the father of the boy acted like nothing had happened. Can you imagine speaking to a 30-year-old man like that while he is sketching your portrait? This is audacity, irreverence, and so much more. How terrible! Now imagine if one of these children ever decides to become a monk. Can you even imagine how much spiritual work he must undertake to become a good monk? When mothers do not properly raise their children, they will be ruined. It is the mother that makes the difference. She is the foundation. If things have changed for the better in Russia, it's because the mothers secretly kept both their faith and their piety, and in so doing they helped their children. Fortunately, there is still some yeast left. There are still Christian families out there. Otherwise, our situation would be hopeless. Yeroda, if children who are raised in this manner ever want to change their ways later in life, or even become monks, will they be able to do so? If they realize that what they were doing is wrong, Christ will help them. In other words, the moment the good kind of concern enters the soul, the problem is solved. But if they never question their past ways, they will end up saying of their abbot or abbess. What is this we have here? A dictatorship? Who ever heard of such absolute discipline in our times? How can someone who thinks this way ever change? Yes, there are actually young monks who come up to me and tell me this kind of nonsense. Respect is gradually disappearing. Young men come to my kalivi, and most of them sit on logs with their legs crossed, while their elders remain standing. Others, while they see that there are some logs to use as seats only a few steps away, are too lazy to go and fetch them. I must go and bring them. Even when they see me carrying them, they do not offer to give me a hand. They want water to drink, but they will not go to get it themselves. I must go and bring it to them, and they even send me back for a second cup. Really, I am astonished. Here they are, all 30 of them, young men, healthy and fit. They come to my kalivi. They see me limping and carrying a box of sweets, a large vessel of water and cups to serve them, and they will not lift a finger. And while they are sitting there waiting, a brigadier general, a man seasoned in battle, jumps up and helps. They behave as if my kalivi is a restaurant or a hotel, and all they need to do is wave at the waiter to serve them. You know what I did on a few occasions? I went and got the water, brought it to where they were, poured it on the earth right in front of them, and said, I went and got you the water, fellows, but I don't think that it will be of any help to you. In city buses you see children sitting, while the elderly remain standing, or young men and women sitting with their legs crossed, while others, much older in age, get up and offer their seat to an elderly person. Even when asked, some youth will not give up their seats. I paid for it, they protest. They couldn't care less that an elderly person has no seat. In the old days, people had the right spirit. Women would be seated along the narrow streets, and when a priest or elderly person passed by, they would stand up, and that's what they taught their children. There are times when I get so upset. There may be older, serious people, even officials, having a conversation, and then these children come and interrupt them with such audacity, only to utter something foolish and yet consider it an achievement. I gesture to them to stop interrupting, but nothing helps. Unless I scold and embarrass them, they will not stop. They will go on talking. Nowhere in a patristic text does it say that young people should talk this way. In fact, we often read in the Hierodikon, an elder once said. It does not say anywhere, a young man once said. In the old days, children would not speak in the presence of adults. They were happy being quiet and listening, nor did they sit where the adults sat. They were reserved and respectful, and even blushed when they talked to adults. If a child had spoken badly to his parents, he would not dare appear in public out of shame. On the holy mountain, a monk had to have a white beard to be allowed in the choir. Nowadays, everybody is allowed. Novices and pre-novices gather around the lectern to chant. At least they should learn to behave with respect and reverence. It is actually not unusual to hear even a student at the Athonius Academy tell the director, who also happens to be a bishop, "Holy Director, let's speak man to man." This is what things have come to, and what's even worse is that they ask, why? What did I say that was so bad? I don't understand. They do not say, "Forgive me, Father, may I have your blessing to express a thought as foolish as it may be?" Instead, they come up to you and speak their mind as if it were nothing improper. It's your opinion versus mine. Do you see what I mean? Unfortunately, this same spirit has entered monasticism. You hear novice monks saying, "I've told the elder so many times, but he still doesn't understand what I'm saying. Do you know how many times I've told him?" It's like they are saying the elder will not correct himself. If you try to help these young novices to see what they are doing, they protest. Why? Can't I even express my opinion? I feel like exploding when I hear such things, and in the end they will come to you and tell you, "Oh, I didn't realize that I upset you, I'm sorry." He is asking me to forgive him not for his self-centered audacity or for what he had said, but for the fact that my blood is boiling. They will even pass judgment on God. Yaroda, is judging everyone and everything something new to this generation, or has it always been this way? No, it was not like that in the old days. This is the spirit of our times. Nowadays they judge not only laymen, politicians, and church leaders, they also judge the saints. They have even come to the point of judging God. God, they say, did not act right in that case. He should have acted this way instead. Can you believe it? So I object. But, my son, how can you tell God what to do? Why can't I? He replies. This is what I think. They don't realize the degree of their impudence. This secular spirit has destroyed so many good things. Evil begins this way and slowly turns into blasphemy. They pass judgment on God and don't mind in the least that their thoughts may be blasphemous. There are some who, having a high opinion of themselves and perhaps little logic, look at others and say, "That fellow is pint-sized. That fellow limps. One is like this, the other is like that." They have no consideration for anyone. Someone once came to my Kalivi and referring to an incident said, "God should not have done it this way." I asked them, "Can you keep a pebble suspended in mid-air? Those stars you see up there are not sparkling beads. They are huge masses in space that move with a dizzying speed and yet do not collide." He insisted, however, but in my opinion, God should not have arranged it that way. Can you believe the man? Is it up to us to judge God? Human logic is everywhere present, and trust in God has disappeared. And if you try to talk some sense into these people, they say, "Forgive me, but all I did was state my opinion. Don't I have the right to do that?" The things that God hears from us, fortunately, He doesn't take us at our word. In the Old Testament, God told the Israelites, "Utterly destroy all Canaanites from this land." Compare Deuteronomy 7:2. For God to have said this, He must have been aware of something, but the Israelites thought, "That's not very humane. We should let them live. We should not annihilate them." Soon, however, they were lured into immorality and idolatry and started sacrificing their sons and daughters to idols, as we read in the Psalm 106:37. They sacrificed their sons and their daughters to demons. God knows what He is doing. Still, there are insolent individuals who ask, "Why did God create hell?" Once we start criticizing God, we are no longer in a spiritual state. We no longer have the grace of God to deepen our understanding about the reasons for which God acts. The question why is a judgment. It is pride, egoism. Yaroda, this is a question that we once got from a group of young people. Why was it necessary for Christ to be crucified? Couldn't God have saved the world in another way? Here we see that even though He saved the world in this way, people are still not moved. In what other way, then, could He have saved it? And there are those who say, nothing happened to God. It was His Son who was sacrificed. As I see it, a father would sacrifice his own life rather than see his child sacrificed. It is more painful for a father to face his child's death than to face his own. What can you say to them if they don't understand what love is? Another man asked me, Adam had 2 sons, Abel and Cain. How did Cain's wife get there? But if one should read a little further in the Old Testament, he will read that after Seth, Adam had sons and daughters. Compare Genesis 5, verse 4. Cain had left his home and wandered in the mountains after his brother's murder and did not know that the wife he took was actually his sister. Genesis 4:14-15. God provided that men should descend from one tribe to prevent evil and crime. He wanted us to realize that we all come from the same father and mother, Adam and Eve, so that this thought could then put a limit to human malice. In spite of all this, malice is everywhere today. The things that I must put up with from these types of people who come to see me at my Kalivi. Sometimes I say to them, I have a headache and can't get any aspirin around here. So they go away unhappy. They don't understand why I tell them that I have a headache, and so they complain. We went to so much trouble to get there, and now he tells us that he has a headache. Others ask me, should we go get you some aspirin? Yeroda's headaches are caused by the types of questions these people ask, or the things they say that reveal their utter lack of engagement with Scripture. In other words, his head hurts just by thinking about how faithless they are, or by how accepting they are of secular biblical understanding, rather reading a little further. Impudence drives away divine grace. We need to be very careful. Conduct that is disorderly, unruly, and inattentive presents an obstacle to divine grace. Lack of respect is the biggest obstacle to God's grace drawing near. The more unruly the children are, the more the grace of God will abandon them. Secular ideas of freedom have driven away both respect and common courtesy. At Micah Levy, I have seen young men call out to their fathers, "Hey Dad, do you have any cigarettes? I ran out of mine." You would not hear such a thing in the old days. The few boys that smoked did so secretly. Now no one sees anything wrong with it. How is it then that they are not completely deprived of the grace of God? Today there are some young women who use the filthiest language you can imagine to insult their own brothers for going to church and being religious, and they will do this right in front of their fathers and mothers, and the father will say nothing. My hair stood on end when I heard this. Later, when I was alone, I couldn't stop muttering to myself. Children raised in a secular environment, raised by secular parents, suffer devastation of soul. The secular environment and secularly minded parents are destroying children. The environment has great influence. Few are the children that are reserved and have philotimo. When children are insolent and audacious, they become unmanageable. Their parents bring them to me and say, "Father, my child is possessed." I see right away that the children, thank God, do not have a demon. Possession is a rare thing. Most of them suffer from an external demonic influence. The demon does not rule their lives from inside, but from the outside. Still, even from this position, he manages to get the job done. And how does it all start? It starts with impudence and audacity. When children speak with impudence to adults, they drive away God's grace. And when God's grace departs, the demons get to work, and the children become unmanageable and get into all kinds of mischief. However, the children who have reverence and respect, who listen to their parents, their teachers, and their elders, are constantly receiving the grace of God and His blessing. God's grace protects and shelters them. Where there is great reverence for God and respect for one's elders, divine grace comes and fills the soul until all can see it glow with divine light. But the grace of God does not come to rebellious children. It comes only to children who have philotimo, who have respect and reverence. These children are easy to spot. One look at their eyes and you immediately notice how bright they are. The greater the respect they have for their parents and elders, the greater is their reception of the grace of God. A child that begins by constantly making demands, "No, I don't want this, I want that," will end up a rebel, a devil. This is what Lucifer also wanted, to place his throne above the throne of God. Just look around and you'll see so many examples. Children whose parents cater to their every demand will grow up to be rebels. If when they are older, these children do not repent to be free of the evil surf which tosses them about, but continue to behave with impudence, then, God forbid, they will be doubly abandoned and even arrive at the point of talking about God in an unseemly way. When this happens, the evil spirits will come and rule their lives. Dear listeners, thank you for listening. Our show has come to an end. We will continue once again where we left off in our next show. Until then, be well.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have
Readings of Orthodox Spirituality.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou, Lekea.